Is the U.S. housing market slowly fading away from being a national treasure that it used to be? Mortgage rates are back over 7% and home prices keep falling. And affordability is half of what it was in 2021. Are buyers going to be able to find their hidden gem? And if so, are sellers still going to be asking for the moon? All of that is plaguing prospective purchasers. Plus, Rocket Mortgage and UWM cut another large chunk of their workforce and combat the slowdown in the market. X marks the spot as we cover these stories and much more in This Week in Real Estate. Yay! What is up, everybody? Thank you for joining us on this fine Wednesday. My name is Ray. Say hi, Dan.
Hi, Dan. The stories are true. Ray is that good. I literally wrote that to trip him up today because I know he didn't have time to read it beforehand.
I didn't.
And he nailed it.
That was extremely difficult. Thanks for all the alliteration. I appreciate it. Now, we do have a lot to talk about today. Tons of news stories. We're going to deep dive some really fun ones. Grant Cardone is in the news, and we're going to deep dive what he talks about being the investors rescuing housing. Plus, we are going to do... Yeah, the savior of housing. Mm-hmm. We'll also talk about ChatGPT, and we're going to run an experiment. So if you're a real estate professional, or if you know of a real estate professional, there's this article that talks about ChatGPT basically giving someone advice on exactly what to do to afford a home. And then we're going to look at that advice, compare it to the expert that they had, and then we are going to ask ChatGPT some questions that a real estate expert, a real estate agent would be able to answer and see just how it compares to someone like Dan Ludwig and Matt LaMarche. So thanks everybody for joining us live.
I hate that, but I also love
that. No, we're broadcasting on Clubhouse. If you're in Clubhouse, go to the little greenhouse at the top. Make sure you're following the rooms or following the club so that you get notified of great rooms like this. If you're on do all the subscribe-y things, all the YouTube-y things, do all that stuff. So subscribe, hit bells, whatnot on all the Facebooks and all that jazz. And if you are, we'd love to see your comments. So go ahead and comment, and we can display your comment just like Julie Moon, who is first this week. Yay, Julie. And Melissa Mara says that she's joining us. She finally doesn't have an appointment this week. Well, I guess that's like good news and bad news.
Right.
Dan, are you ready? Let's just, why don't we just dive right in today?
Yeah, I'm down. Let's go.
All right, mortgage rates are back up over 7%. The average rate on the 30-year fixed mortgage has risen above 7%, driven by fears that inflation is not cooling off, which is pushing bond yields higher. Mortgage rates are generally follow the yield curve in the 10-year Treasury, and this rise in rates has led to a retreat in purchase applications, with activity down for 3 straight weeks. As a result, mortgage applications for home buyers have fallen in the past month, and last week hit a 28-year low, according to the Mortgage Bankers Association. Bob Borschmick, he's the president and CEO of Mortgage Bankers Association, said that high rates, ongoing inflation pressures, and economic volatility are giving some prospective buyers pause about entering the housing market. For home buyers, this rise in rates is a direct impact on the monthly payments. So this is an interesting example they have too. It says, oops, one of your streams is having a connection issue. I don't know which one that is, but I hope it's not the YouTube one. Let us know if one of our streams is.
You're not the clearest, but I mean, we can still see and hear you.
I can hear you. Matt says Clubhouse is good. All right.
Yeah.
YouTube is good too.
YouTube is good. It must be
LinkedIn or Facebook.
LinkedIn or the Facebook. Yeah. All right. Sorry about that. All right. So I thought this was an interesting part of the article. It says for home buyers, the rise in rates has directly impacted their monthly payments. For example, for a buyer purchasing a $400,000 home with 20% down on a 30-year fixed loan, the monthly payment, including principal and interest, is now roughly $230,000 or $230 more than it would have been a month ago. Compared with a year ago, when rates were 4% range, today's monthly payment is about 50% higher.
Wow.
While the trajectory for rates now appears to be higher again, it's not necessarily guaranteed for the long term. Matthew Graham, he's the COO at Mortgage News Daily. He notes that if the bigger ticket data has a friendlier inflation implication, then we could see a bit of a correction. Unfortunately, traders will be hesitant to push rates aggressively lower until they have several successive months pointing to a meaningful lower inflation. So basically, we need month after month of lower inflation in order to get rates to stop going up.
Yeah, and Olivier up in Canada says that the Bank of Canada held rates today at 4.5. So hopefully we follow suit there.
Oh, that's interesting. So they're holding rates higher for longer. They're not lowering the rates.
Right.
Let's see. Our last rate increase was 0.25, correct? And a lot of people are predicting a 0.5 increase because the inflation numbers didn't really go down. It didn't really slow things down very much.
It didn't. Remember that report from January? Well, it was about January, but we reported on a few weeks ago that said that consumerism outpaced inflation by like 1.9%. And they're like, whoa, dude, we're trying to slow this down, but we can't.
Olivier said that my line of credit interest payment is almost 30% higher than it was in January of 2022. Wow. Okay, then.
300%. So Howard says that Facebook wasn't working. So there you go.
Okay.
We've sussed it out. So
thanks for fleshing that out.
So rates are up, but what's mortgage demand doing, Ray?
That's a great question, Dan.
So mortgage demand recovers slightly despite rising interest rates. After dropping to a 28-year low the previous week, mortgage demand recovered slightly, even though interest rates marched higher. I like to picture them marching higher. Total mortgage application volume rose 7.4% last week, according to the Mortgage Bankers Association's seasonally adjusted index. It's kind of a big number, in my opinion. What do you guys think? This happened even as the average contract interest rate for a 30-year fixed rate mortgage increased to 6.79% from 6.71%. That is the highest level since November 2022 and 270 basis points higher than a year ago. That's a big jump in a year. This is a quote from Joel Kahn. He is an MBA economist, MBA, not NBA, MBA. He says, even with higher rates, there was an uptick in applications last week, but this was in comparison to 2 weeks of declines to very low levels, including a holiday week. Applications to refinance a home loan jumped 9% for the week, but were 76% lower than the same week 1 year ago. At last week's rate, I always find this stat very interesting, by the way. At last week's rate, there were barely 200,000 borrowers who could get monthly savings from a refinance, compared with well over 2 million who could have benefited at the rate 1 year ago. And that's according to statistics from Black Knight. And then we'll finish on mortgage applications to purchase a home did rise 7% for the week, but were 42% lower than the same week 1 year ago. There is more inventory on the market now compared with a year ago, but new listings are still weak, suggesting that what is for sale isn't selling very quickly.
Well, that's interesting. You know, the previous article talked about the rise in rates going to keep people from making mortgage applications. And then the very next article, which was a couple of days later, says that the mortgage demand actually is recovering. So maybe people are just getting used to the higher rates. I have a correction to issue.
Go ahead.
Olivier, it wasn't 30%. It was 300%. Sorry, I made my screen bigger so I could see.
Yeah, 300.
His payment's 300% bigger. Okay. What were you going to say, Dan?
It's not a huge number, but 7% up is a pretty big jump week over week with interest rates being in the high sixes. That's a big jump to me. I mean, it's a positive sign in a lot of negative signs.
I concur. I'm also I'm working a little bit with my stream settings here. I feel like my setup is backwards than it normally is. Is it backwards to y'all? It looks backwards to me on the.
Yeah, you're usually looking to your left and you're looking to your right now.
So my video settings have reset. So there you go. Hey, look at there. I'm looking at the right location now. And now I'm looking at Dan.
Hey.
Okay. So what are home prices going to do in lieu of all of this info? Redfin, this is a great report from Redfin. I'm going to show you some of the charts if you're watching on one of the video platforms. Redfin says home prices fall annually for the first time in a decade. The median U.S. home price decreased 0.6% year over year in February, making it the first annual drop since 2012. However, despite the drop in home prices, the typical monthly mortgage payment for today's home buyer is a record of $2,520 due to elevated mortgage rates, which means that homes aren't actually more affordable. Redfin Deputy Chief Economist Taylor Marr noted that while the decline in home prices is a milestone, it's not surprising in many ways because home prices have skyrocketed in recent years. However, Marr warns that prices will likely continue to decline in the coming months, but the first-time buyers hoping to score a major deal this year are likely out of luck because so few homeowners are listing their homes for sale. Limited inventory and continued interest in turnkey homes in desirable neighborhoods will keep prices somewhat propped up, and high rates will continue to hit affordability. Although home buying demand is down from last year, it's still up from the fall's low point. Redfin Home Buyers Demand Index, a measure of requests for home tours and other services from Redfin agents, hit its highest levels in September, and online searches of home sales also are up significantly for their that's a misspelling. Sorry. When I typed that out, I did not type that right. However, mortgage purchase applications have declined to the lowest level since 1990s. That's actually based on last week's report. The article also provides data on homes bought or sold during that period, including the median price for the metro areas. The biggest drops in prices were seen in the pandy home buying hotspots of Northern California, while sale prices increased in most in West Palm Beach, Milwaukee, Columbus, Miami, and Fort Lauderdale. Let's see. High mortgage rates are dampening home buying demand, and limited inventory for continued in turnkey homes in desirable neighborhoods are keeping prices propped up. So that's basically what we have here. Let me share the screen and I can show you guys. Okay, so housing market update. Home prices fall annually for the first time in a decade. I'm going to scroll down to some of these charts so you can see here. I thought these were really interesting. Let me get me and Dan back on. How do I get us back on here? Oh, there we are. Hi.
So many Dan and Ray heads.
Yeah. There's so much Dan and Ray on the screen. Okay. So the median home price is 0.6% year over year. And you can see these trend lines, 2023, 2022, 21, and 20. It's still up a lot from 2020. A whole lot, almost $100,000, like $75,000. So that's significant. Then the median asking price, 0.6% year over year. It's plus 0.6%. So the asking price is still up a little bit, but the sale price is down a little bit. Home buyer mortgage payments. Now, this is the key indicator that they're talking about. You know, even if a home does go down a little bit in price, it doesn't matter because the mortgage payment is so much higher due to the significantly
is it affordable
rates. Yeah. Pending sales were negative 15% for the year, which we reported on last week. And you can see that's way lower than previous years. Now, would additional so look at this graph. The pending sales, negative 15%. New listings of homes, negative 20%. There seems to be a relationship between these two charts. If you were to overlay them on each other, you would clearly see
very
that
similar.
When there are more listings, there are more homes sold in general since 2020, which that's how far back they're going. So can we say that if there were more listings right now, there would be more homes sold? Is that a relationship that we're comfortable with? I mean, I am based on these two charts.
With only 2 years of data, 3 years of data, I would say yes, there would be, because there'd be more available for buyers to look at. But I still think it would increase days on market. So you would see that chart split apart a little bit. I mean, when you look historically over a couple of years, you would, or a longer period of time, it would look similar. But I would say it would increase days on market. And because those homes that are sitting now are still going to sit, and then the newer homes would go on quicker days on market, but it'll increase days on market. And then, those lines would split a little bit.
Active listings for homes for sale are up 20% year over year. We're matching basically almost exactly the 2021 line. That's interesting.
That's
I mean, crazy. It's just laid right over it. Huh. And then let's see, 3.5 months supply available on the market. So anyways, a whole bunch of charts. You guys could go to Redfin and see all these for free.
And
They pull all this data from the MLSs that they're attached to.
okay, yeah, because Jack Attridge wanted to know source of data. It's
Yeah.
funny when we quote Redfin and Zillow and stuff, but I mean, and I'm going to mention it in an upcoming article, but it's funny when we quote and they say going back all the way to 2013, like it's forever ago, when we have other sources that go back 60 years.
Yeah, they're just looking at the MLS data and such.
Yeah. And by the way, on there you go. On Clubhouse, William, I'm gonna butcher his last name, but I'm gonna guess that it's Petrowski.
No. Oh, that was pretty good, actually.
Yeah, William Petrowski. He says 64.8 million households out of a total of 132.5 million are unable to afford a $250,000 home, and he says he got that from NAHB, so National Association of Home Builders.
Yep. They're going to be releasing a report next week too, by the way. So we'll have our eye on that.
Can I release a report?
You're going to release the report live? Is this an exclusive report from Jack Attridge?
Let's go.
No, I'm no Tim Mady on breaking news, but so what I'm looking at right now is we have some pretty good demand in the Boston area. We have little inventory in the Boston area, but what I'm tracking right now is when a property comes on the market, say it comes on the market for $750,000. How many offers is that? How many showings and how many offers is that property getting? So if it gets 3 offers, then that section of the market is 2 buyers away from slowing down pretty quick. I still think there's a lot of demand. I still think we need a lot of inventory, but I think we're going to come into a spring market that is pretty delicate, that price ranges in different areas can get saturated pretty quick. And, it's like with all the snow that's going on, it's like going into a big puff of snow and you just slow down to a dead stop. So I think this spring is going to be really fragile.
Yeah, that's a good point. I feel like we're kind of in this wait and see. We could go one of 2 directions.
It could be either good or bad, like CEOs say.
Oh yeah, just like CEOs say, it's going to either be good or it's going to either be bad.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, it's the waiting game. Maybe, or do you always feel like that this time of year, Dan? Like it feels like, are we going to have the inventory that we think we're going to have? Or are we not going to have inventory? Do you always kind of feel that way this time of year?
I mean, I've said that since we've done the show. We've never had enough inventory in this country since I've been an agent, really. I mean, there was, there was a lot of shadow inventory and stuff like that. So there was kind of enough, but it was never really fully a buyer's market. It was still, sellers could still, list and get plenty of showings and get good traffic through open houses and stuff. But I guess it was a little stagnant in 2012, but that was my first full year in real estate and I killed it. I had a great year in real estate. So for me, I guess it's seasonal, but if you're looking for people to buy or sell a home and you're constantly prospecting, then I don't know. I don't think you're affected by trends really, by a spring season. This has been way more of an effect the last, what would you call it? The last 6 months.
Yeah.
Just because it's been harder to find people that want to buy and sell, but they're still there. So like, how do I feel about this year? I mean, the last 3 years are so fresh in my mind that, all of a sudden it died in 2020 and then came back hotter than ever for 2 years, so for me, it was like, I start my push now, or I start my push for spring all the way back in November, usually. So I usually have enough business coming in.
We normally see more new listings hitting the market than we are seeing right now. I know that for sure. I mean, normally I went back through 65 years of data and March was the increase in solds over months. So it was just like a little bitty bump and then everything else was just kind of steady up all year. So whenever I saw that, you're thinking, okay, so March, there's going to be more listings hit. No, I mean, usually that means that late February, there were more listings and then more people jumped in the market. So it's interesting. Brian Hershey, a college buddy of mine, says I owe him $7.33. and we were giving away. We're not giving away the houses today. Maybe one day. If I can't pay you back $7.33, I'm not going to give away a house.
Yeah. Well, so what he did
Good to
was
see you, buddy.
he invested that $7.33. So eventually he can give away free houses. But I was trying to get back to you, LaMarche, and because he did make a joke. He said, "Does it smell like up dog in here?" What's up, dog?
What's up, dog?
Not much in you. He just had to answer his own. So I apologize.
That's so bad.
I like it. Good job, buddy.
That's bad, Matt.
So there's an expert panel that says prices will grow at a steady pace starting in 2024. Where's this expert panel from?
If only we could find an.
This one's really funny to me because I read the title and it's like, dude, expert panel. Like, okay, so they did some national conference of realtors and pulled all these experts in. It's just from Zillow. But it's according to a Zillow survey of housing experts. So this one starts out, and I don't know where this one is from, but this one starts out with Seattle, March 2nd, 2023, PRN Newswire. Home prices nationally should bottom out in 2023, then return to a more normal growth rate, according to a Zillow survey of housing experts. That's always funny to me. And someone else kind of made that point. I think Jack was, I think Melissa was, about pulling data from Redfin. It's interesting because as I always read through these Redfin and Zillows and stuff, it just always is in the back of my head. Like, what if maybe they had a reason to tweak the data a little bit, but they're looked at as, experts now or main sources of info for real estate, which is a little scary to me. I don't think they should be a main source of, but they do pull a lot of data through their website. But I digress. We can deep dive that later.
Dan, if only there was a organization, where maybe we could all come together and pull our resources as realtors, right, and I don't know, like some kind of big national organization. That would be cool. Maybe
a national association or something.
That would be a great idea if we had something like that had a bunch of housing data that they could rely on.
And then that maybe, when someone else is pulling more data, then we fight back against them. It would be it's a pipe dream, but maybe one day that'll happen. Anyway, economists and housing experts polled in the latest Zillow home price expectation, that's the ZHPE survey, expect home prices will fall 1.6% through December 2023. That's actually lower than all the stuff I've seen. I've seen it say 0.5% a month, which would equal out to a full 6% for the year. Affordability challenges are still dragging down demand for homes. Lower mortgage costs in January translated into sales that tracked pre-pandemic trends, but higher rates in February have since dampened buyers' enthusiasm. Starting next year, however, the panel foresees price growth picking back up at an average clip of 3.5% per year through 2027, the same rate that prices grew in the relatively stable period from 1987 to 1999. I like that they have to say relatively stable. That's before the housing boom and the bust in cycle in the 2000s. Zillow's latest in-house forecast calls for typical U.S. home values to be nearly flat, rising 0.2% over the course of 2023. The largest declines are forecast in expensive California metros. I like that they just single out. It's just California. Nowhere else that got overinflated. It's not going to have any other declines, but California for sure. This is a quote from Jeff Tucker. He is Zillow senior economist. He says the housing market is resetting. Though we're seeing early signs of renewed buyer interest early this year, prices should generally flatten out in 2023, helping buyers to catch up. He goes on to say the sheer number of people in the first-time home buyer age range and a lack of inventory should limit price declines. A return to more normal growth would be welcome after the roller coaster ride that home prices have been on lately. Now, it seems like they're adjusting the data to be a little more positive for sellers, which is who they focus on, right? They focus on getting seller data sellers to their website, right?
Yeah.
So it seems a little bit interesting that all the stuff I read is a bigger decline per month than they say for the entire year. So I've just a caveat to put on your knowledge for the day.
Well, I mean, it's hard to figure out how they're trying to interpret it these days because it also behooves them to attract a whole bunch of buyers to the website in order to get buyers to click on stuff so that they can sell those leads to agents. So I don't know. It's interesting to like I said, if we could just pool our own data, pull and have it available for agents to look through and stuff like that, then we can make interpretations as a professional agent.
We're getting there. We're national or more and more MLSs are combining, so maybe at some point they'll figure out 20 years too late that we need our own national website, but whatever.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Let's see. Jack on this topic says, if it can't be NAR, we can all find one source of data to express fractions of change. If there is such a source, bottom line is your data within your market.
Right. Yeah.
And that's what, yes, whenever we're visiting a buyer or seller in our own market, that's what we'd like to talk about. But to see national trends would be awesome if we could somehow get all that data together. Anyway, let's talk more about Zillow. They actually picked some winners and losers of the housing market already. So Zillow picks 238 housing market winners that will see home prices tick up and 156 losers facing the price cut. Zillow's predictions for the U.S. housing market suggest the correction will begin, which began in 2021, may be coming to an end, with home values expected to increase slightly over the next year. This represents a shift from the sharp downward revisions that Zillow made to its home price outlook through 2021 as the market moved to from boom to correction mode. Zillow's data shows that 238 of the 400 largest housing markets are expected to see positive growth over the next 12 months, with only 156 markets forecasted to experience a decline in prices. This means that just 39% of major markets are expected to post home price declines over the coming year. The southeast of the country is predicted to be the epicenter of home price growth, 2023, with some of the biggest price upticks forecasted to occur in markets like Morristown, Tennessee, Rome, Georgia, Knoxville, I assume it's Knoxville, Tennessee, Johnson City, Tennessee, and Atlantic City. Meanwhile, some of the biggest home declines are expected in markets such like Lake Charles, Louisiana, Houma, Louisiana, San Jose, Los Angeles, and Las Vegas. The west coast of the country is expected to see the weakest region this year, according to Zillow. This is due to a high concentration of rate-sensitive tech employers in the region, as well as overheated home prices that are vulnerable to mortgage rate spikes. Zillow's data shows its 276 markets have seen local home prices fall from their respective peak in 2022. With the biggest seasonally adjusted home price declines occurring in San Francisco, Bend, Oregon, Santa Cruz, Boise, and Austin. Despite this, Zillow's data suggests that the percentage of major markets experiencing a month-over-month price decline has been dropping steadily since September of 2021, with just 47% of the nation's 200 largest housing markets registering a decline since January of 2022. So it still looks like terrible news for you over there on the West Coast, Dan. But for everyone else, it's going to be, not so bad. I guess they could say it's not like a boom year for them, but it's just a not so bad year.
It's not so bad. It's not so
bad.
It's a good song.
Let's see. Melissa Mars said, "Did you say Atlantic City?" Did I?
Yeah. Did you know they're building 1,000-foot wind turbine in Atlantic City?
Atlantic City.
I'm just making up stuff. If only we could have some more affordable homes for sale in 2023, Ray.
Affordability is the main issue. Damn.
Man, we're pretty good at that. So this is from Redfin. Again, there were half as many affordable homes for sale in 2022 as there were in 2021. So this article has a lot of stats and graphs. I don't know if you want to come to it, Ray, at the end. I'm just going to kind of tick on some kind of main things here, but this one has a lot of stats and graphs. You can scroll through them. It also mentions it's not necessarily race inequality, but affordability through, across the different races and how it's higher here and lower there. And there's a lot of reasons why. And There's a lot in this article that we could deep dive, but I just wanted to touch on the basics here. So if you want more on this, go over to Redfin. So according to a Redfin analysis of home listings in the 100 most populous U.S. metropolitan areas. So a listing is considered affordable if the estimated monthly mortgage payment is no more than 30% of the local county's median income. Which, haven't we hit stories, Ray, where it's the payments are pushing 40 and 50% of their income? So the number of affordable listings fell 53% from a year earlier in 2022, the largest annual drop in Redfin's records, which date all the way back to 2013. It's crazy. While that's partly due to a decline in listings in general, it's mostly due to the fact that higher mortgage rates made the listings hitting the market less affordable. So now this is a quote from Deputy Chief Economist over at Redfin, Taylor Marr. Housing affordability is its lowest level in history, which will widen the wealth gap, especially between millennials. Many millennials were able to buy their first home before or during the Rona home buying boom, but many others were priced out of home ownership and forced to keep renting. That means a lot of young adults missed out on major wealth building opportunities. The value of homes owned by millennials has risen nearly 30% in the past year alone. That's a big one. So he continued and says, the good news is that housing affordability should improve. Mortgage rates will eventually come down as the Fed makes progress fighting inflation, and home prices have already begun falling. Incomes are also growing faster than the historical norm, which is a rad thing. That's a really good thing. The Biden administration recently announced that we covered on last week's show that it's cutting mortgage insurance rates for home buyers who take out an FHA loan. So that's going to increase affordability for roughly 850,000 home buyers. And then some states, including, let's see, what does that say here? California. That's weird. I live in California. Some states, including California and Oregon, have also passed legislation that allows for the construction of more starter homes. It's weird. California's doing a good thing. Huh. Increased supply could help limit home price growth over time. If executed well, based on California government, these new laws could serve as a blueprint for other areas grappling with housing shortages. I thought that last little stat there was cool, so I thought I'd throw it in because I don't do a lot of new construction, but I thought it was interesting that, and I didn't even know that we passed legislation that will help us build more affordable homes. I think that's really cool.
Allegedly. We'll see how it goes.
That's why it ends. It's like it mentions California, so at the end it's like, if executed well. I mean, we know how Californians are. They say dude all the time and smoke a bunch of doobies. How are they going to regulate anything, those morons?
Oh, wait, I even have the sound effect, but instead of doing,
Bruh.
Jack Atteridge says, this week in real estate sponsored by Redfin.
Yeah.
He's not lying. It was really interesting. Last week we had something like 16 stories or something insane that we had to cover from all kinds of different news outlets. And today there just wasn't a lot of reports. CNBC has gone a lot to these video reports, which are not extremely helpful, especially when we reduce them to writing, because it's very difficult to read someone that's talking. It's just,
and there's usually not
weird to turn that into an article. Right. And so this week it was all like Redfin reports. And so instead of going to the commentator talking about Redfin's report, we just are going to Redfin's report and telling you what the report said. I think that's a better tactic anyway. Yeah. Now
we're the reporter reporting on Redfin reports.
Yeah. We're legit writing new stuff, which that's fun. Speaking of Redfin, we got another one. Where have all the $1 million homes gone? This article reports that the share of U.S. homes worth at least $1 million has declined to 7% from a high of 8.6% in June of 2022 as the housing market cools. However, this figure is up from 4.2% just before the pandemic began, which suggests that the pandemic has had a significant impact on home values that's likely here to stay. Just throwing that in. The Redfin Housing Value Index, which incorporates the Redfin estimate, public records, and MLS data we use to estimate the current historical value of over 99 million properties in the U.S., is what this report's based on. The cooling housing market attributed several factors. First, home values have dropped from their record highs, 6.5%, plus mortgage rates dampen home buying demand, and prices have posted their first annual decline in over a decade. Second, some of the decline is from the June peak, is due to seasonality, as which home prices typically decline in the second half of the year, but the June to January drop noted in this report is much bigger than usual. Third, the prevalence of the remote work that has reduced demand for home buying in expensive coastal areas such as the Bay Area, where the share of homes valued over $1 million or more is falling the fastest. Despite the decline, the portion of U.S. homes worth $1 million or more has nearly doubled since before the pandemic, and the typical home is worth significantly more due to the uptick in the home values over time. However, the decline is significant enough to affect buyers. Chin Zhao, Redfin's economist research lead, warns that buyers, quote, buyers who need to take out a loan may not get a good deal at present, as buying a $800,000 home today would cost more per month than buying $1 million home a year ago. The Bay Area is seeing the most significant decline in the share of $1 million homes due to the decline in home prices. San Francisco's median sale price fell 9.4% for the year in January, and Oakland fell 7.8%. Rising mortgage rates.
No one really wants to live in Oakland, by the way. They had to live in Oakland.
Well, now that the Raiders have moved, what reason is there? Rising mortgage rates have hit expensive markets particularly hard.
No one cares about
Rising mortgage rates have hit expensive markets particularly hard because homes there are so expensive, with even a small bump in rates translating to a big increase in monthly mortgage payments. However, some areas have seen an increase in the share of $1 million homes. Miami, for example, sees the most significant increase, with 14.4% of homes worth at least $1 million, up from 11.5% a year ago. Other cities with increases include Northport, Florida, Anaheim, Nashville, and West Palm Beach. These increases may be due to factors such as lower housing prices and a surge in demand for homes in these areas. Let me see if there's anything else here. This decline is due to a combination of factors. Yeah, we already read that part. So there you go. So the share of $1 million homes is less now than it was a year ago, but still almost double what it was pre-pandy.
I think that second part to that stat is more important there, because there's still, yes, there's less, but I was going to say the exact same thing Dusty said, which is, if a house is worth $1 million and it loses 5%, okay, it's worth $950,000 now. Like, that's good for buyers, but is it that big of a deal? You know what I'm saying?
I mean, it's not a crashing economy, but it's just interesting, the ebb and flow. Here's the chart from the Redfin.
And then maybe it should have never, well, not never, but maybe it shouldn't have been worth $1 million in the first place. You know, with how crazy things went over the last few years. But
it was worth that because the demand was there.
Right. You know what I'm saying.
It's worth what somebody's willing to sell and what somebody's willing to pay.
Which is why Pete wants to argue a scap.
Yes. Dusty said, in my area, we only lost, if anything, between 1% and 4%, depending on the area, city, or suburb, talking about value. And we're supposed to lose our minds losing 1% when we gained over 100% in the last 4 years. That's what you're saying, right?
Yeah. And then also I think what she's specifically saying is that she has no inventory. Inventory is going down there. So it's going to either boost that back up or hold at the values they're at now.
Yeah. Let's see. Sorry, I'm clicking around on my screen trying to make sure that I have everything in front of me here. Okay, so let's talk about how long people are staying in houses, Dan.
Now, if people would sell more, because this stat, there you go. She says, yep, I'm under 11K now. I think she means inventory for her area. This stat surprised me. So the typical U.S. home changes hands every, how long do you know the title, Ray? But how long do you think, everyone in the comments and on Clubhouse and everything, how long do you think that the average house?
Everybody make a guess.
Take a quick guess. Just give me a few guesses.
How long?
How
long are people living in their house? Now, I will say this, Dan. When I first saw this stat, was a little shocked. I used to say 5 to 7 years. I would say that a lot.
Well, Ray,
During the height of the market back in 2006, 2007, it was every 2 to 3 years people were moving. And I feel like during the pandy, it became every 2 years again. That's what it felt like. Like people that sold or bought 2 years ago were wanting to move again.
Yeah.
So
and
you would think that after all that, it's come way down from the 5 to 7 years. But Dan, we have some guesses here. Jack Adder says 20 years. Olivier says 7.
He's not
Dusty
wrong.
says used to be 7. Okay.
And then
so
Olivier
let me see
says
the
7,
clubhouse. Do we have Scap says 69 years. Nice. William says 7 years. All right.
Yeah. So
clue us in, Dan. What's the right answer?
So now Jack's not necessarily wrong, and then you're not necessarily wrong on saying the lower stat of 3 to 5 years. But the typical U.S. home changes hands every 12 years. That's down from the 2020 peak. So there are lots of stats and facts in this one. So I'm going to keep this one short as well. But if you want, you can go over to Redfin and you can see it. But homeowner tenure is down slightly from the peak reached in 2020, but it has nearly doubled over the last couple of decades, contributing to the lack of for sale inventory. This is where Jack is kind of correct, right? This is the number that's skewing it higher towards his number. So baby boomers are driving the general trend of longer homeowner tenure. More than 1/3 of homeowners 65 and older have held onto their homes for at least 33 years. So there's the boomers screwing over the millennials once again.
Wow. That's incredible.
33 years, which is, I mean, that's something we've talked about plenty on the show. I talk about the silver tsunami that is going to start flooding and taking over the U.S. housing market sooner than later. That's where we're going to see our big boon of inventory. So the opposite trend, this is where you are right, Ray, and then the middle people. The opposite trend holds true for millennial homeowners. Half have owned their homes for 3 years or less. Renters move much more frequently, with the typical renter moving every 2 years, contributing to the imbalance between the number of people moving and the number of homes up for sale. So this one's weird. Californians hold onto their homes the longest, largely because it's amazing to live here, but also property taxes. So, Ray, if there was only someone that had been propagating for the last 5 years on this show, an idea, maybe something to incentivize sellers to help them sell a little more often, and maybe, I don't know, give them a benefit and stop giving benefits to buyers. Not that buyers don't need the help, but let's help out sellers from once in a while, especially with, we have a tax break here, but you can only use it once in your lifetime. So
Christina Smallhorn joins us and says, freaking boomers.
Yep.
Y'all have those Moulin Rouges there, right?
Sure. I don't know what that is.
The Moulin Rouge.
Oh, the Melrose. Yeah.
Yeah.
That started in 81-ish, but it's more prevalent the last 20 years. But yeah, that's the new construction. That's where you got to be careful with.
This is an interesting add-on. Jack Adder says years in home will grow with all the ADUs and zoning changes.
I agree with that.
So putting a tiny house in your backyard is going to make you stay there longer. I bet Christina Smallhorn's going to be there. I bet she's going to hang out in her house a little longer because she's got the tiny home / office in the backyard now. Okay, so what does this mean overall? You have an increase in interest rates. You have a decrease in home inventory. More people are living in their homes
ruining
longer.
The market.
It sounds like possibly I should get a new job, especially if what BlackRock says is going to happens, right? BlackRock predicts red rates. BlackRock's the world's largest asset manager has said that the U.S. Federal Reserve will likely bring the Fed funds rate to 6% and keep it there for an extended period of time in order to slow the economy and bring inflation down near 2%. The comments came after the Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell warned that interest rates were likely to rise more than expected. BlackRock's Chief Investment Officer, Global Fixed Income, Rick Rieder, R-I-E-D-E-R, Rick Rieder, said that the economy is more resilient than expected, pointing to the most recent jobs report and the Consumer Price Index reading. In his note, Rieder highlighted the strength of the U.S. economy and its ability to adapt, comparing it to polyurethane, a material known for durability and flexibility. And he said that the material's ability to be stretched, bent, stressed, and flexed without breaking, while in fact returning to its original condition, is what makes it so chemically unique. That's a very interesting comparison.
Yeah.
However, he noted that this resilience complicates matters for the Federal Reserve, since the economy is no longer sensitive to interest rates as it once was. Polyurethane, if you set it on fire, can it kill you? BlackRock's call for terminal rate of 6% comes as Morgan Stanley economist said on Powell's commentary opened the door for the resuming larger hikes of 50 basis points. This is what we were just talking about.
Yeah.
The probability of a half-point hike moved to 73.5% in Asia's weekly afternoon. According to the CME Group, FedWatch, a 50 basis point hike would bring the rate to a range of 5% to 5.25%. So he thinks it's going to continue to go up even higher than that. Federal Reserve is slated to meet on March 21st through the 22nd. So we should have that not this week, but the next week. We'll have breaking news right during our show. A hawkish stance from the Federal Reserve could result in further rate hikes, while a dovish stance could see rates remain stable. I don't think anybody believes that he's going to lower the rates.
No.
All right. So speaking of billionaire rich investor guys, Dan, you've got one to hit on real quick, and then we're going to deep dive it.
Yeah.
Tell me about what Mr. Grant did.
Is Grant Cardone our savior? So he says that he and other real estate investors will save the day and prevent a home price crash. So I'm just going to hit on the quick topics here. I'm going to give you a little meat on the bone, and then we're going to deep dive it. So rapid home price growth and soaring mortgage rates led to a dramatic downturn in housing demand throughout 2022, leading experts to speculate that the entire U.S. real estate housing market could implode. Well, has it yet? That's the question. While the housing slump is escalating this year, there's a brighter future ahead, billionaire real estate fund manager Grant Cardone told Benzinga, as published by Yahoo Finance. People like him, he said, will re-enter the market before it enters crash territory. And here's his quote, and this is where we're going to leave it and come back to it. So stay tuned. We want to hear your thoughts on this. He says, investors will step in to pick up single-family homes at lower prices with less competition. That being said, there will be no housing crash. Investors like myself will save the day and step in to buy the homes. I'm just going to hold it there.
We have a comment in Clubhouse. Pronto 322 said, "Oh no, not another Grant support group here." I hope you're still listening, because
definitely not
pleasantly surprised.
Yeah,
there are some surprising things that were said in the article that we want to get to, and we will get to that in the deep dive. So you guys stay tuned for that part of the show, which is coming in like 2 articles. We need to talk about Rocket Mortgage because they made some big cuts recently. So Rocket UWM cut a combined 9,500 positions. Mortgage lenders Rocket Companies Incorporated, the United Wholesale Mortgage, have reduced their combined workforce by nearly 10,000 employees I guess towards the end of 2022, as they try to cut losses to curtail more losses. The move comes as rising mortgage rates have stunted lending and has seen Rocket Companies shed 7,500 workers, finishing the year with 18,500 employees, or 29% fewer than they began with, while UWM Holdings, parent company of United Wholesale Mortgage, had 6,000 employees, down from 8,000 at the start of the year. Wow. While neither firm has described the cuts as layoffs, Rocket Company said that it had offered select team members the option to participate in voluntary career transition program. This is the best, a voluntary career transition program. It added that it had selectively backfilled critical positions as team members left the company to begin to align headcount with market demand. Align headcount with market demand with a voluntary career transition program. This is beautiful. UWM Holdings, meanwhile, said that it's trimming payroll through attrition, which involves not filling roles left blanket as workers retire or leave. So they just wanted to move on. Time for them to move on, and we're just not going to fill the position. Rocket Companies reported a 25% reduction in annual expenses, $5.1 billion, in order to salvage $700 million in profit. I think that's basically it on this one. We just wanted to report that. We've been following what's happening in the market with the lenders and the layoffs and everything that's happening like that. We also have some acquisition news. So Dan, why don't you cover that real quick, and then we'll get into the deep dive.
CMG acquires Homebridge's retail assets. Now, I actually pulled a lot of info on this, but I'm just going to hit it real quick just so you guys know what's up. So California-based CMG Mortgage Inc. struck a deal to acquire the retail division of Homebridge Financial Services. The company's announced on Monday. The financial terms of the transaction were not disclosed, which is always awesome when they don't do that. CMG Mortgage, which claims it originated more than $19 billion in 2022, said the M&A deal seeks to increase its footprint on the retail lending business. According to Inside Mortgage Finance, the company was the 27th largest mortgage lender in the country in 2022 by volume, but its originations declined 32% year over year. Regarding the retail channel, the company originated about $9 billion in 2022, down 36% per IMF estimates. And the lender's CEO, Christopher George, who founded the company in 1993, said in a statement that that the companies, both privately held, will together create meaningful opportunities for innovation for growth. So there's some more stats on how much they originated, how big they are, and then the company's Peter Norton, the CEO of Homebridge, he's going to act as the executive advisor to CMG's retail division to ensure a successful transition. So not much there, but maybe if they're growing, maybe they'll pull in some of these 9,500 layoffs that are being reported and these 5,000 that there's lots of reports of layoffs now. So maybe there's some growth out there for people.
Yay! We need like an outro, I guess, for the headlines now, because all we have is the other intro to the deep dive.
Yeah,
which is just this audio, but maybe we need some kind of, we'll have to come up with an outro. Well, thank you guys for joining us for the headline portion. We're about to go into the deep dive, and this is where we really want you guys to speak up. First, the question is, Dan, actually, before we get into all this, would you tell people what this show is actually all about?
Yeah, I would love to, so when I met Ray here on the interwebs 10, 20, 40 years ago, when Al Gore invented the internet and pants, I had an idea for a show back then called The Bearded Men of Real Estate, because we are in fact Bearded Men of Real Estate, but now This Week in Real Estate. But when I met Ray, I noticed something very interesting about him.
What was that, Dan?
He does not like anything in his coffee, takes it totally black.
That is absolutely correct.
Boom. See?
I will, like, sometimes I'll get a frou-frou drink, but I got to be feeling it. I got to be wanting the sweets. I got to be wanting something heavy.
Because I don't drink coffee at all. I don't really like coffee, but every now and then I will get like a dragon fruit mango with some lemonade in there because it's pretty yummy.
I displayed a comment that I want to get to in just a second here.
Yeah, we're going to come to that, but I digress. When I met Ray, I obviously noticed that he's a beautifully bearded man, but I also noticed that he loves giving value up front to not only his clients, but just to humans in general. So the show is about being more as an agent, but also being more as a human.
That's right. And one of the ways to be more as a human is to know what in the world is happening so that you can make better decisions with your real estate investments, or if you're a professional in the business, that you can make better consultations, give better advice to your people, because you know what's happening to rates. You know what the Fed's about to do. Christine Smallhorn said, did Rocket do it over the Zoom call? No, they are not Better. Better.com did it over the Zoom call. I don't think Rocket did. But you have a bunch of people that are working in in different areas. Like, how else would you meet them? You know, these days, so many Zoom calls are company meetings because people are working from second home places.
Yeah. And again, it's not that he did it via Zoom. It's how he did it via Zoom.
Yeah.
There's definitely a better way than he did it.
And no, Chrissy, she said, so are we just skimming over my Grant Cardone comment? No.
No.
Wait, she said Grant car grifter
comment.
No, we're coming back to that. We have 2 articles to talk about. The first one, I want to pose a question for the first deep dive. Can ChatGPT give better advice than you? Can ChatGPT give better advice than you? There's an article on Fortune, which is in Fortune Recommends. I don't know what that means. But it says in recent months, AI is everywhere. So we asked, this is an extreme Ray of phrase. We asked ChatGPT to give us some financial advice and then compared it to what a financial advisor would give.
But just so you guys know, we means Ray. I'm not doing.
No. This is Fortune. Fortune did this.
Okay.
This is I'm gonna. So what I want to do is I want to tell you what the person gave ChatGPT, and then how they compared it to the advice from who's the guy, Matt. What's his last name? Mardo.
Oh
no, Mondo. Mondous. He's a CFA, CMT, CFP, and senior financial advisor at Blue Chip Partners.
Geez, all right. He's got some titles.
Yeah, he's got some titles. He's been to the extra classes to get the extra certifications.
Yep.
So this was the scenario. The author of this article said, I wanted to know if ChatGPT was capable of answering some of our most important financial questions and creating a plan for hitting these goals that was tailored to each user's unique financial status to test whether or not the advice provided could align with what a certified financial planner might advise. We gave ChatGPT and a human CFP the following scenario. Figures also hypothetical, of course. I'm interested in purchasing $500,000 home within the next 5 years. These are the points that I gave ChatGPT.
Right.
I live in a single income household, $100,000 a year before taxes. I have the following debts: $30,000 student loan, 5% interest, $2,500 credit card at 22% APR. Some of my reoccurring monthly expenses include, and it says like a car, $350, rent, $3,000, retirement contributions, 5% employer match. My savings account balance is $3,000. My brokerage account balance is $2,000. Invested in various forms of mutual funds. ChatGPT took just a few seconds to generate the following response. Based on the information provided, it's important to focus on reducing high interest debt first before saving for a home purchase. Here's some steps you can take. Prioritize paying off your credit card debt as soon as possible. And then it gives them more details.
So they went immediately to Dave Ramsey's website.
ChatGPT went to Dave Ramsey's website and said, all right, so coincidentally is what the guy said. This was also the first course of action that Matt Mondo, the senior financial advisor at Blue Chip Partners, recommended as well. He said, quote, I would say over the course of the next month or two, just eliminating credit card debt. I think that would certainly speak to the inefficiency of that debt.
Now, I would not do that.
So both of them say to do that.
I would not do that as a first step. I would send them to a lender and have the lender.
Well, this guy is a financial planner, so he's going to have advice that a lender would. Yeah. He's not a real estate agent. He's a CFP. Okay. So the next course of action was to tackle the $30,000 student loan debt. ChatGPT said, consider refinancing or consolidating your federal student loan debt to lower interest rate. This can help you save money or interest over time, or reduce payments. Mondo also recommended tackling the $30,000 student loan debt, making it a goal to repay the amount by the end of the 5-year deadline. He thoroughly explained what a minimum payment would be given today's interest rates, how much I would need to set aside each month, eliminate debt before assuming new debt for the mortgage. Okay, so the next step is home ownership, according to ChatGPT, building an emergency fund.
Okay, I see it. Okay.
Next step to home ownership is building an emergency fund.
Okay.
So build up an emergency fund, 3 to 6 months of living expenses. This will help you cover unexpected expenses without going into debt. That's pretty good advice, because you don't know if you move into a home and then suddenly the AC goes out.
Right.
Mondo's advice differed. So the financial planner differed here.
The real person.
He said accounting for competing priorities and suggesting a twofold approach, saving for a down payment and building a hefty emergency fund at the same time. While preparing to buy a home, your down payment will play a role in determining what your monthly mortgage payment looks like. Working with a sizable down payment and emergency fund for hiccups. So he says basically do more. Taking all of those facts in together, here's the money coming from the salary. Here's the money going out. Look for cash flows and outflows. What are we missing?
Dusty says plot twist. Chat GPT is Dave Ramsey.
It's the same advice your mother would give you, only it has no teeth. For Dave Ramsey fans, they know that phrase.
Yep.
With a goal of 20% down payment, Mondo would then suggest ways to feasibly save $20,000 a year. He also accounted for some of the unexpected expenses. So it sounds like Mondo went to a little bit more detail of what the individual could do. But ChatGPT is basically giving almost the same advice. The only thing it didn't say was to save up for the down payment at the same time that you're paying off or you're saving up.
And
for,
also, didn't
emergency
it say
fund.
5-year plan?
Yeah, it's a 5-year plan.
Yeah.
Once you've paid off so ChatGPT then suggested saving for the down payment and cutting monthly expenses to reduce debt.
And that's all in a few seconds it pulled that.
Yeah. Both ChatGPT and Mondo suggested that I continue to prioritize the author continue to prioritize retirement savings and increase contributions whenever possible to keep the momentum going.
So here's my problem, Ray.
Yeah.
What takes years? I mean, that dude has how many licenses and how many certifications? and it took him years to get that knowledge that he has and years to build up trust in his community. ChatGPT learned that in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
That's scary. No.
So the guy graduated with all
scary.
the degrees. So think about being a financial planner right now, that you graduated with all your degrees. You just got your financial planner thing and you just read this article. I mean, it's just you're in a tough spot. Now the author did a pretty good job of summarizing on the details that he got from ChatGPT and the financial planner, the differences. So here's some big differences. ChatGPT did not account for potential changes in income, which that kind of, that sounds like an easy thing that you could think about. ChatGPT limited knowledge of events after 2021 and didn't account for changing interest rates. The real financial planner set realistic goals for him. ChatGPT assumes you know exactly how much you spend. The real financial planner dove into that a little bit. And then there's no accountability to ChatGPT, where the real human had accountability. Now, I would say those are differences, but the advice itself was similar, if not the same.
And also, if you asked, I'd be curious, maybe we can do that, but I would be curious to say, if I wanted to buy this home and here's all my outgoing costs, how much do I need to save? I'm assuming it would give you a pretty relatively close answer.
I think that would be probably pretty easy for it, actually. All right, so let's create a scenario. And with the help of people in Clubhouse and in the chat, I want to create a scenario that we real estate agents see regularly. Hopefully this works. Let me see if ChatGPT is up right now. Sometimes it goes up, sometimes it goes down. I guess I need to buy the subscription for it.
I just don't think any of this is a good idea.
While you're searching there.
Go ahead, Jack.
Yeah.
While you're searching around there, it's the asterisk based upon the information that you gave ChatGPT.
Correct. That's what we need to do is to give it additional info.
And then, another term is buyers are liars. And I attribute that to the fact that buyers really don't often know what they want until you counsel them through a process. Maybe that their parents are older and that they're going to be, hey, have you thought about the fact that you and your siblings are probably going to inherit your family's home, or all of the other things that we do as counselors. I'm not going to argue with the fact that they that they are answering good questions and with good detail, but and I would be more worried as a financial advisor than I would, which is a bit of a more linear process than a real estate process. But I'd be more concerned as a financial advisor. But I
Okay,
still
Jack.
think
Thanks for volunteering.
Sorry. Oh, hey.
You just volunteered to be the first participant versus ChatGPT.
The guinea pig.
Nice.
Let me give you a scenario, Jack. And ChatGPT has already given me the answer while you were talking. This is how fast it is. So the scenario is I'm a buyer and I'm under contract to buy a home. The inspection doesn't look good. The AC's bad. The water heater's old. And there's a lot of small repairs. I'm putting 20% down on the purchase. How would you suggest I negotiate the inspection period? Just give me some general advice about getting through this inspection period.
I would want to seek advice of tradesmen to find out what the extent of the repairs are going to cost.
All right, Dan, help me keep track of this. He said seek advice of a professional tradesman. How much are the repairs, right? So know what you're looking at here. Okay. That's great advice, Jack. What else would you say?
And then match that up with with any buffer that I may have accounted for versus what I think I can leverage from the seller versus where we feel that we landed with value versus market value in our offer.
Okay, so match up the cost of repairs to what you believe the buffer, either the market value buffer or the buffer is how much money you have set aside. Match that up, what your expectations were, and then see what the seller could do, right? So then you dive in and say, okay, Mr. Seller, could you do this or that for us?
Perhaps. I also don't know if there's 3 other offers behind me.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, neither does ChatGPT.
Or do they?
I might know that I might know that there were 3 offers. That I was the 4th offer in on the property.
Well, so what you would have to do in that scenario is also update ChatGPT with the similar info, right? You'd have to give it the info that you have.
So you can take that off of my response.
Okay, we'll take that.
To be fair to ChatGPT.
To be fair to the robot and you.
I don't want to hurt any feelings here.
Good. Okay, so let me read to you guys what ChatGPT said. Dan, could you just kind of summarize back what Jack said? I thought it was pretty good.
Advice from a professional tradesman, and then match up basically what they got, their contract price versus what the seller can do for them. You know, what they got into escrow at, or if you're an escrow state, not an escrow state, versus the market value versus contract price. And then are there other offers? Okay. Did I get it?
Yep. I think that's it. I'm going to share the ChatGPT now. So if you're on YouTube, you'll be able to see the ChatGPT screen here. Let me zoom in for that a little bit. Okay, here's what ChatGPT says to this buyer, Jack. If an inspection report has revealed significant issues with the property, you may have some room for negotiation during the inspection period. Here are some steps you could take. 1, review the inspection report. Carefully review the inspection report and understand the extent and severity of the issues, and make a list of items that need to be addressed and estimated cost of repairs. 2, consult with a professional. Consider hiring a professional to provide an estimate of repairs. This can give you a better understanding of the cost of the repairs and help you determine what items are most critical to negotiate. 3, prioritize your negotiations. Once you have a clear understanding of the repairs needed, prioritize negotiations. Focus on the most critical repairs that are the most expensive, such as the AC or the water heater. Oh my God. 4, decide on your negotiating strategy. Consider your negotiating strategy. You may ask the seller to make repairs, lower the purchase price, or provide a credit at closing to cover some of the cost of repairs. 5, submit a formal request for negotiations. Once you have your strategy, submit a formal request for negotiations to the seller and be clear and specific about the items that you want to negotiate, the cost of repairs, and the desired outcome. 6, be prepared to walk away. If the seller's unwilling to negotiate, you may need to be prepared to walk away from the deal. It's important to remember that you don't purchase a home that is significant, that has significant issues that could cost you a lot of money and repairs down the road.
Okay, so
remember that negotiating during the inspection period is a normal part of the home buying process. With careful consideration and clear negotiating strategy, you may be able to come to an agreement that is beneficial to both parties. Is that scary or what, Jack?
Yep.
I mean, it basically covered, it covered everything that you covered, and it added a few more cautionary words, which probably if you were talking with an actual buyer in that instance, you would say, be prepared. There's certain things that, as agents, we kind of always say in those parts of the transaction. I can't think of any place in this scenario that it was wrong.
So even the last one,
the last part.
It says, be prepared to walk away. If the seller's unwilling to negotiate, you may need to be able to walk away from the deal. Yeah.
No, underneath that.
Oh, remember that negotiating during the inspection period is a normal part of the home buying process. With careful consideration and clear negotiating strategy, you may be able to come to an agreement that is beneficial to both parties.
I mean, last month it wasn't even acceptable to have an inspection in a contract. So a little bit, and there's nuances, of course, but
in Arkansas, it would be it's still part of what we do every time. Even when the market was crazy, hardly anyone was waiving the negotiating. They may say they're purchasing it without the expectation of seller repairs, but they were still inspecting the property and approving that part.
We were doing no appraisals and maybe no loan contingency, but we were still inspecting. You still have to inspect the home.
Isn't that wild though, guys?
My deals had no inspection.
So it just gave this stupid robot just gave advice on negotiating an inspection. And that's, as real estate agents, that's one of the more intricate things that we have to manage, is that negotiating through the inspection period.
Right. So can we stop feeding this damn thing? It's stupid.
No, I want to do it again.
No.
Well, the scary thing is that this is version 1 of this whole new world. But number 2, couldn't you have, it is sourcing all this information off the interwebs anyways. Couldn't you have just searched for this information, without using the... Yeah,
but not all in one spot.
ChatGPT, what you would have to do...
Thousands of websites.
What you would have to do is, in order to get the answer that we just got, you would have to compile several different websites and pieces of information, and you would have to then put that in order yourself. And what ChatGPT did was just reference basically the entire internet as a database and organize the information quickly and concisely into a step 1 through 6 on how to negotiate an inspection repair addendum.
And when you hit enter, how long did it take to pull that data?
It was literally when Jack was making his opening comment. That's how long it took. Okay. So that's negotiating. What's the other job that we as real estate agents do?
Well, a big one would be
pricing.
Well, pricing, but also I would say I have a house to sell and then I also want to buy, because that's a very intricate process.
Okay. That's great. I need to sell my home before I buy another home. What's the question that the home buyer in this scenario would ask? What are the best ways? How do I get the most amount of money for my home and get the best deal on the one I'm buying?
For me, they just say, well, I have to sell before I buy. Well, it's even further back than that. I want to buy a house. And then I say, well, do you have a home to sell? I do have a home to sell. Okay, well, we have to start there. So
okay. All right. So let's start with that premise. Okay. I need how can I purchase a home? Who wants to be the versus ChatGPT? Is Matt LaMarche in Clubhouse still? Do you want to go against ChatGPT?
Let's go.
No, based on Jack's response, absolutely not. I did not.
No way, Jose. How do I purchase a home when I still have to sell the one I am in, right?
Yeah.
How can I purchase a home when I still have to sell the one that I'm in? Can you just give me a quick answer on that, Matt?
Right now in Atlanta, Georgia, I would say you can't.
Well,
No.
you could probably, all right. So let's take that as a scenario, Matt. There is probably a way that you can.
Wait. Make it more specific to Atlanta, Georgia, right? See what
It can't. I don't think it could do that, but I can tell you.
Okay.
Hey, Matt, just go with that answer, right? Right now, it's almost impossible to put a contingent offer on there. So what would your advice be?
Well, it would be to remove that contingency, but unfortunately, a lot of the people that I'm working with, they can't do that. And
right,
there's so much divide right now that I can't guarantee anything, unfortunately, on the sale of that property that they have to sell to buy. So, unless they're in a position financially where they can do so, it is literally impossible.
So what are some suggestions?
Wait.
Go that route. What are some suggestions? If they can't, they're maybe not in a position to where they can just buy outright. There are other tools and resources out there, right?
But Matt, would that be okay? Let's get your house listed and at least get into escrow. And now that contingency can be removed or removed sooner once we have the buyer's contingencies removed on the sale of your home. What would you recommend there? Go farther into your sale first?
Yeah. So, I mean, my ultimate recommendation on this would be something to the effect of, look, as a seller, you have more leverage right now. So, maybe a temporary occupancy is the way to go.
Or rent
maybe
back.
There's an opportunity. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Because these are all things I would say too. Okay.
Anything else that you would suggest, Matt? I know I'm putting you on the spot, right? But to be fair, we're also putting ChatGPT on the spot.
But it has no emotion.
But has ChatGPT done their CE yet? Because I have.
Man, it sure, based on these answers, it sure as hell looks like it.
And if they haven't, they can do it in 30 seconds.
When you were just joking about the answer, like in Atlanta, they can't. It had already figured out a 4-point answer. Just to let you know.
Of course it did.
All right, well, let's go.
Are you ready for it, or do you want to give me any more advice? Any last words, Matt?
No.
Okay. All right, so I think of the 4, 3 of these are pretty darn good. So there are a few options. This is all I asked. How can I purchase a home when I still have to sell the one I'm in? There are a few options you can consider if you want to purchase a home before selling your current one. Number 1, bridge loans. A bridge loan is a short-term loan that helps you bridge the gap between the purchase of your home and the sales of your existing home. This loan is usually secured by your existing home and is designed to be repaid once your existing home sells. Number 2, home equity line of credit. A HELOC is a revolving line of credit that can be secured by your existing home's equity. This can provide you with funds that you need to purchase a home while you wait for your existing home to sell. Once your existing home sells, you can use the proceeds to pay off the HELOC. 3, a contingent offer. You can make an offer on a home that is contingent upon the sale of your existing home, and this means that the new home is dependent upon that sale of your existing home. However, this type of offer may be less attractive to sellers because they can delay the sale of their property. Number 4, rent back. You can negotiate a rent back agreement with a buyer of your existing home. This allows you to stay in your existing home for a set period of time after the sale is closed, giving you time to find and purchase a new home. It is important to weigh the pros and cons of each option and consult with a financial advisor or real estate professional to determine which option is best for your individual situation.
Is this you talking or ChatGPT?
This is. Let me share my screen. This is totally. This is.
So
them,
what's
man.
the one
this
you disagree with? Because it's going to be the same as me, I think.
I mean, the one I thought was kind of iffy, and it's going to depend heavily on their lender and stuff, is the home equity line of credit. I don't know that
the same.
I don't know that the access to the HELOC is what it once was when in 2021. So and that's the only one that was iffy.
HELOCs you can't just get from your lender, right? Like you have to, from what I know, The HELOC I've done and other, it's got to be Wells Fargo, a big bank. So you'd have a second on your home essentially.
There are
right?
some HELOC. There are some smaller lenders with HELOCs, I think, but
it would be a bigger gamble though.
I've seen it advertised.
It would be a bigger gamble to me, that one. That's the one I would disagree with, but the other were good.
we're great.
Bridge loans,
it's the same advice I give.
Yeah.
I only give bridge loans advice to the people that could really afford both homes in worst case scenarios. But
right.
So the important distinction, and we'll do this one more time, but the important distinction, Matt, and for Jack, is this thing that they put at the very bottom of this one. It's important to weigh the pros and cons, consult with a financial advisor or real estate professional to determine which option is best for your individual situation.
Right.
And I think as far as the business of sharing general advice goes, ChatGPT is going to kick a real estate agent's tail all day.
Yeah.
But giving specific advice to a specific situation, that's where the real estate pro has the advantage. Yeah. For instance, in the negotiating one that we put Jack into, if you knew that other agent would regularly give up their client's best interest and would try to negotiate on your buyer's behalf in order to sell their home, then you could play that card a lot differently. You could go harder in the paint with that inspection repair.
Or if you know they don't have any other offers, or if you know your offer was
Correct.
20 grand higher, if you know.
Correct.
These are things that you're not going to tell. If you told ChatGPT, I'm sure it would figure it out, but it's not going to ask those questions. It has to be told these things, right?
Right. So you have to tell it the knowledge that you have in order to get a fair response.
Right.
But most consumers aren't going to have that knowledge either. So when they approach ChatGPT, they're going to approach it and just ask the basic question without all of the.
Because I think how you ask that, I need to sell a house before I buy a house, I think you ask that pretty open-endedly, which is how any normal seller / buyer would ask it. But for me, my first answer wouldn't be all of the stuff it said was fine, but I wouldn't say any of that stuff. I'd say, well, first we got to talk about the sale of your home and see what it's worth, make sure it's the market value. We got to leverage that because you'd still technically have more leverage as a seller right now than as a buyer. We got to make sure that's handled first. Then I would go into other options. And then you'd have to get them, can they get pre-approved for a loan? Because just the fact that they own a home doesn't mean they can buy another one. What if they don't have a great income or have lots of debt? Like, can they buy? And how much of that, how much equity do they have? How much, how big is their current loan on their current house? I mean, there's so many things you got to take into account.
Okay. For my final act, let's evaluate an investment property. So I have a beginner investor.
Grant Cardone being our savior.
Yeah, well, it's a good transition to the other part of our deep dive, which I hope Christina is still here for.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the deal, and I would love for somebody to take this on that is familiar with investment properties to see the advice you would give. It's already done giving it. What's up, Shane?
Got it.
Shane's here. He's an investor.
Well, there you go.
All right, Shane, I want to invest in real estate. There's a home that's for sale for $250,000. The rent on it is $2,200 per month. I'll hire a manager for 10% per month. Is this a good deal? Should I buy it? That's what I asked ChatGPT. It already has an answer that is very long.
Yes.
How would you just give basic general advice to this person?
What's their financial position? What are their investment goals? What are their risk tolerance, experience, and education? I always reset all of our rooms with fire. What's going on in that particular MSA as far as stability? Was it a no growth or strong growth market? And
are you writing some of this down, Dan?
Oh, sorry, no.
What's the management situation going to be? Are you going to be the landlord, or are you going to have a property manager?
He's going to hire a manager for 10% per month.
Oh, that's what it says in that. That's what the question says?
Yeah.
Okay, restate this exactly again.
Okay, so the home is for sale for $250,000. The rent is $2,200 per month. $250,000 home, rent is $2,200. They'll hire a property manager for 10% per month. Is it a good deal?
Oh, they're just processing. Well, again, I'm going to go back to where I'm at because I just want to throw out a quick case in point. You can cash flow all over the Midwest and Northeast, but it doesn't mean you're not in a war zone. So I want to see how ChatGPT does that, because that goes back to the basic geography. And if you're going to landlord or property management, if you're going to property manage that, is that property manager, adept in working in that kind of neighborhood? So
Right.
I'm not going to go crazy on this, but we've got what's the custom situation, what's the geography situation. I'm not, you could dive into the personal and the geography forever, but you said it came back with a lot of things. So if it's not addressing what the neighborhood's like, what that crime and what that performance is going to be like realistically, okay. The other thing I don't like about it is condition of the home. So is it worse? Is it giving us anything to talk about the condition of the home? We're talking about the geography. We're talking about the investor's individual situation, okay. And then the last piece of the puzzle is, in this current market, the financing piece, because it doesn't say what that, and on a personal level, it's not telling us what kind of financing they're going to be able to get.
Right.
So hopefully it's addressing all of these things. But what I think is interesting about this whole conversation, in a brief thought on this in general, Ray, is it's that stage we did on Dream Team with you, me, and Zillow Killer, Michael Zal, some other people. I can't remember who was all there that day, where a lot of this information, I don't feel like it's bad, but with the questions that you were given, you and I and anybody else in here would have limitations. We would need a deeper dive.
Correct.
So all of it's going to always process the data backwards. It still doesn't have the ability to process the data in the moment and forward.
Right. Yes. That's a great point. It processes data backwards. Okay. So that was a great answer, Shane. Basically, you said you kind of ignored the financial. You kind of ignored the financial consideration because I think you just assumed that ChatGPT is going to hone in on, here's the math. But you mentioned it has to consider the neighborhood and area, geography, and what was the condition of the property?
Condition, crime, the personal story of the investor. Where is he at with this, or where are they at with this? Property manager, are they adept at working that neighborhood? Condition, and then what type of financing and neighborhood demos, demographics.
Right. So I think this is probably one of the hardest to do, to evaluate. But especially given the information that I've given it, it's very limited on the information that I've given it, but does it know enough to ask me questions? Okay. So this is, and I have a follow-up on this that we'll do as well. So this is the information. Let me share my screen here, and I'll read to you what ChatGPT told us about this potential investment property. To determine whether or not a real estate, let me share. Sorry. Bam. Okay. To determine whether this real estate investment is a good deal, you should consider several factors, including the potential return on the investment, the risks involved, and your personal financial goals and circumstances. One way to evaluate the potential return on investment is to calculate the gross rental yield, which is the annual income divided by the purchase price of the property. In this case, the gross rental yield would be, and it does the math for you and says $26,400 of annual rental income. That divided by the purchase price is 0.1056 or 10.56% gross rental yield. A gross rental yield of 10.56 is relatively high, which could make this property an attractive investment. However, it's important to consider other expenses such as property taxes, insurance, maintenance, and vacancies, which can significantly impact rental income. Assuming the property is fully occupied for the year, the monthly property management fee would be $220, 10%. If we assume other expenses such as property taxes, insurance, that add up to an additional $5,000 per year, the net rental income would be 26, and does the math for you, $18,760 net rental income. Using the net rental income, we can calculate the net rental yield, which is the net rental income divided by the purchase of the property, which is 0.75 or 7.5% net rental yield. A net rental yield of 7.5% is relatively high on return on investment, but it's important to consider other risks involved, such as changes in rental market, unexpected expenses, and potential vacancies. In addition to the financial considerations, it's also important to consider your personal financial goals and circumstances, such as your risk tolerance, investment portfolio diversification, and long-term financial goals. Overall, the calculations provided, this could be a good investment opportunity, but it's important to conduct further research and due diligence before making a final decision. You may want to consider consulting with a financial advisor or real estate professional to help you evaluate the potential risk and rewards of the investment. Wow.
There's a lot of good stuff there, but there's something key missing, and this is where our roles exist, even in the future of ChatGPT, which is just, I loved everything until they started breaking down the math, because that's just way, depending on, is it a C neighborhood, C plus neighborhood, B neighborhood, what's the disoccupancy factor, not just in maintenance, but also like if, when people turn in a tough neighborhood, anybody's ever managed in C minus in the Midwest, Northeast. I mean, if they trash your property, you've got to fix it, and then you've got to wait to get back on the market. That's 3 to 5 months. You can destroy cash flow. But it was pretty impressive as far as the framework of giving questions that people should be asking themselves or asking their professionals to push farther what they need to know. So actually, that was if they would have left out something, I think it would have been a really, really strong answer. They put in something that I felt like was way too speculative and confused the common novice. So on that note, that's where I kind of downgraded. But all in all, there's a lot of good stuff there.
Yeah, all in all, it wasn't bad. Okay, so I asked a follow-up question with ChatGPT because I think your average investor is going to be a little wiser than the norm, right? They're gonna say, okay, what am I missing here? So I asked ChatGPT basically, what am I missing? I said, what questions about this investment opportunity am I missing?
Come on.
And it said, when considering investment opportunity, there are many questions you may want to ensure, have a clear understanding about risk, potential rewards. Here's some additional questions. What are the current occupancy rate for the rental property? Is there risk of high vacancy rate in the future? How stable is the rental market in the area? Any upcoming changes or trends that may impact the property value? Estimated property taxes, major repairs, expenses. What's the history of the property? How competitive is property rental price? What's the condition of the property? How experienced is the manager? What's the potential for appreciation over time? How will this investment overall? I mean, it's on point as far as what it's telling you to ask. The difference is that the professional likely already knows some of those answers.
Or has already handled those answers up front.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
yeah.
But Dan, what if you just second ask that same question and you put something in like Kalamazoo, Michigan? Or Ray, what if you put in a neighborhood
that's the part that it doesn't know. That's the part that you can't rely on the information.
I say, like if you got someone out there that's just convinced that this is the savior of all answers, what does it even say for that? I mean, whether we do that now or not, that would be the more curious thing, is if you actually put in a specific like city and a specific neighborhood.
Yeah.
I think the major thing that it would miss in those situations is that the data that it has is 2 years old. So it can't possibly be up on point.
Like it can't do an MLS search right now.
Yeah.
Or can it?
No, it cannot. Not yet. Okay. I want to mention one thing. We do have one more thing to cover. If you got 5 minutes, let's just finish that. So that's the ChatGPT. Can it replace a real estate professional? I would say for general advice, yes, ChatGPT can replace a real estate professional. For specific advice about your specific situation or a specific property, no. And I think that's the difference. That's where real estate agents have to be on top of what they can do as far as their job goes and what we do. Jeez. So
new agents are going to start using ChatGPT to figure out how to be a real estate agent, because NAR doesn't teach you, and your local board doesn't teach you, but ChatGPT can.
It was communicating wonderfully. It did math for you and then told you the definitions of what those mean. I mean, that's not bad. Yeah. All right. So let's dive into what Grant Cardone said. Give me a quick summary, Dan, of the article, and then I want to point out one or two things, and then we'll go.
So let's see. I just want to, we can just start with, I'll just do with how I ended it. When we're in the quick hits, is he has a quote and he says, investors will step in to pick up single family homes at lower prices with less competition. And he said that to Benzinga. That being said, there will be no housing crash. Investors like myself will save the day and step in to buy homes. That is the entire article to me. We can deep dive that all day long. In my
That's
opinion.
an interesting take. Basically, he's saying there is no housing crash. This is the first time ever that I've heard Grant Cardone saying there's no housing crash. Oh, I can't hear you now. Why can't
I know.
hear you?
I need to let my dog out real quick, but that's not what he's saying. But go on.
Well, that's what I'm getting to. He's not necessarily saying that there's no housing crash, even though it says there will be no housing crash because we'll save it. He's saying there will be a housing crash and all the investors are going to come and save it right before the crash.
He's going to stay with the same narrative that everything's crashing, but he's saying, no, but I got you. I got you.
I need a hero.
Right.
So he's, Jack Harris said, he's saying he's ready to buy before the dip. Yeah. I don't know. Okay. So let's say the home prices are starting to go down, right? Home prices are starting to go down. What is considered the dip? Right when it dips and starts to go down, or before it goes down? So like right now, because if you're ready to rescue right now, shouldn't you be buying right now?
Right now, because we're we've covered articles on it today. Now, again, everything I've read says about 0.5% a month. It's going to dip throughout the year, but then 2024 should correct that and then start going back up. And then that article we had earlier said it should go up a more normalized rate of 3.5%. So when's the dip? When's this crash?
Yes.
Because it was so clear cut 15 years ago. It crashed and there was a bottom for a few years. So you bought a lot. But my question is, were investors buying a lot then? No, they weren't. Where were they to save the market then? They weren't. There was tons and tons and tons of bank-owned properties and shadow inventory that was not being purchased. So he's just wrong.
Dusty Martin says he's just parroting what investors did from 2009 to 2015. So when in 2007, I got licensed as a real estate agent. I spent 4 or 5 months in real estate and had a wonderful 4 or 5 months. And then the whole world real estate market crashed around me. In 2007, it was like in halfway through that year, it was like somebody turned off the faucet. I was working with a lot of investors and they were like, we're not going to buy yet. 2008, they were still not going to buy yet. They kept saying this: we are in a false bottom. This is not the bottom. We are not going to buy before we hit bottom. And they kept saying it over and over and over. And then 2009, 10, 11, finally we hit bottom. They start buying in different markets according to what they think the bottom is. But they were ready to purchase in 2007 and 8 if we had hit bottom. But the government bailouts and everything that was happening kept us from hitting bottom, and they were refusing to buy because they thought it was a false bottom. They thought it could go lower if they weren't getting the support from the government. So we'll wait and see what happens. I think basically the world has a lot to rely on, and Grant Cardone is not one of them. I think the market's moving, and there are more investors that are involved ever before for my own personal business. But those investors are also moving from other parts of the country to our states and states like mine. So what's going to happen to there is they leave.
A dumb statement like that is stupid. We're going to be the saviors of your, when this crash happens, because he's just going to keep pushing his narrative that everything's going to crash to get more and more people to buy his books and to buy his products and to buy his to pay to see him to speak. He's just going to keep saying the same crap to get people to come see him and invest in him. It's the same thing with all. It's just much more. This is a longer grift, I guess you could call it, but you have it with all the NFT stuff and all the Bitcoin stuff. These influencers, you'll call them influencers. They do what's called rug pulls. So they get out on social media. They say, go buy. This is going to be the biggest next thing. And then they sell when everything goes up. And then there's your pull. Then all of a sudden there's no value there. He's just a longer grift. That's all he's doing. It's a very similar thing, just obviously in a different market.
Speaking of, let me get to Christina M. Smallhorn's comment from earlier. Where'd she say? Yeah. Grant car grifter is what.
Yeah.
That's what she said.
And by the way, on Clubhouse, Britt Dowling says, ask ChatGPT to summarize "Sell or Be Sold," which is Grant Cardone's book. Yeah,
love that.
I mean, it's the same thing with Susie Orman. It's the same thing with the other people I've covered on my channel. It's the same thing. They have a product to sell. They're not here to help you by giving you advice to either buy or sell now. They're not buy or sell now or wait, whatever the best case scenario is for you. They're not here for that. They're here to promote themselves. They always have a book to sell.
And if he always tells people to buy on the crash and buy on the down, but he's saying it's not going to be crashing because everybody's going to be buying it, how do you recognize the time to buy?
Right.
But a couple of things real quick is, Dan, a lot of what you're saying, I feel like that's a lot of agents too. I think present company included, with a lot of people on stage in the room.
Yeah.
But they have been pushing the narrative and interpreting as positively as they possibly can over the last several months, until finally just one day they're like, okay, well, obviously there's a correction going on. And if you look at like over like whatever, several hundred people of the Instagrams that I kind of scroll through are all agents from Clubhouse. There are what I call savvy mods and the Dream Team mods, and they're all telling the truth. And there's everybody else that's just really trying to manipulate the narrative for the last little commission they can get out of it.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
But the other thing I was going to say real quick was what is different about the last global financial crisis is we have more sophisticated investors. And I mean that by knowledge, not necessarily by income, but by income we also do. And we have a lot of equity with cheap mortgage rates. And so that's a big difference last time as far as the actual Main Street or middle-sized investor being able to go in and do stuff before the big institutions decide to kind of crank up their big machines again.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, and Olivier on Clubhouse kind of mirrors what I was going to say as well. He says, even if investors were to pick up so many properties, this is going to remove supply from the market in the longer term. So that would be bad. So, and then
that's also I was thinking about that too. We had the article yesterday or last week. I mean, from the institutional investors that are buying.
Are they flippers or Grant Cardone's a hold and rent guy? So there's
so it's not going to exactly save buyers.
No, it's not going to save anything. It's just going to prevent more inventory from coming on the market. It's a dumb thing to say. It's a stupid thing to say, but whatever. He's that guy, so he can keep being that guy.
All right. His recent investment and acquisitions are terrible. So Dan, you just keep beating. If you look at what he's scaled lately, everything he did early on, he might have been okay, but recently it's terrible. It's all bad.
I know. I watch his stuff. I watch it, and he's and I only know about him. I don't know because he's been around a long time, I believe, but I only know him from the last 5 or so years. But recently, dude, his stuff is just all how to get more clicks on his stuff to sell more stuff. That's really it.
Boom, roasted.
Well, Dan, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you? We got to run.
D Ludwiggrocks, DLUDWIGROCKS. So Jack Attridge, that's there. There's a video on my channel on YouTube, DLUDWIGROCKS. You can go watch that, where I tackle reventure consulting and I tackle Susie Orman's predictions and how bad they actually were. So go watch that. And then on his Instagram, DLUDWIGROCKS. Where can they find you, Ray?
You can find me at Razorback. That's RAYZORBACK. Everywhere good Razorbacks are sold. Thank you guys so much for joining us this week. Thanks for tuning in Clubhouse. If you were in Clubhouse, you should go check out the YouTube. Your picture may have been featured there. I did share. We are able to share the Clubhouse room now. So when people from Clubhouse talk, we can put it on the video platform too. So, but thank you guys. We can see your faces now. So thanks everybody for joining us, and we will see you next week.
Love you guys. Bye.